Today we're answering how Propel One, our agentic AI solution, is different from other AI offerings in the PLM and QMS space. Now at Propel, you'll hear us talk a lot about the fact that our agentic AI can leverage the entire product data thread. We're not just reliant on siloed data from a specific team, but we can span across different teams to gather this comprehensive data set. We talk a lot about our AI having awareness of product and quality data structure so that there's context when you're using the AI. It understands what the different fields are. It understands what the different terms are and what it should be doing with the information in those fields. And finally, we talk a lot about Propel One's ability to execute tasks on behalf of users in order to make them more efficient. So we make a lot of these big claims, but today I've got two experts with me, Steve Toukmaji and Chandra Subramanian, and they're going to walk us through the how. They're going to show how the underlying technology actually allows us to deliver that. So I want to start with the basics here. Steve, we'll go to you. Just tell us, what are the basics of the agentic AI offering at Propel? Just walk us through what that looks like.
Well, Propel One really have four key foundations. One is integral, two is data, then security, then availability. What I mean by integral is it's not just bolted in solution with APIs to a random LLM, to actually be part of the foundation itself. We are built on Salesforce, so we are leveraging Agentforce and Data Cloud. That's very important because this is already a foundation that serves more than a couple of 100,000 customers. So to be able to have a solution that's architected that way with the ability that you can extend it and make it configurable, that's very key for us. And that's how we do it in Propel. And second is data. You know, Propel sits on a rich amount of data from PLM to QMS to PIM, and add on top of it, sales and service and field service and B2B. All that information is key to ground your data. It's a very key point. You don't want to have a siloed system and based on one persona to only serve one purpose. A lot of solutions are siloed to serve one thing, but it doesn't help others, people who are actually using the system. And then security, right? We want to be able to not have your IP information going to a publicly, available LLM, because that's very important for you. And we work in a place with highly regulated customers, so we want to make sure that this information stays put, grounded, with security and encryption and permission set, who can see what. And finally, we want all of that information to be available to where the user are, and not to go to different systems where they work, where the process are, and where their workflows are.
Chandra, anything to add to that?
I think Steve hit on most important points here. I think the key aspect is that Propel One is an agentic system, which is an evolution from your traditional AI to AI that we are very familiar with, like chatbots and so on, to an agentic AI, which means that it will actually perform tasks, but even before that, it can reason on behalf of the user and recommend tasks, but also take some actions on its own. So I think that's the key distinction with respect to Propel One AI versus some of the generic AI tools that are available in the market from other vendors.
All right, so you guys, you've talked a little bit about some of the other vendors, but we haven't really gone into depth. So I'd like to go a layer deeper here. It can be very difficult for just a standard user to understand the differentiation between the AI offerings. Everybody says that they have it. Everybody talks about AI. Everybody talks about AI in PLM or QMS. But let's dig a layer deeper. And again, you did touch on some of this, but what are some of the limitations that you're going to see from some of the AI offerings that are out there in market from some of our competitors? Chandra, why don't you kick us off with this one?
Sure. A lot of the AI tools today sit outside the core manufacturing systems. They are a layer or typically a bolt-on. So they can do a lot of useful things like summarizing documents, answering questions, and so on. But what they lack is the understanding of how a complex product is structured. Things like BOMs, revisions, engineering changes, these are integral to the business process of our customers. Now, without that foundation, AI can produce answers that sound good, convincing, very confident, but may not be grounded in real product knowledge. Now, Propel One works differently because AI is embedded in the system, as Steve was mentioning earlier. It's integral and embedded within the system where the product design and development and the workflows actually take place. So it understands the domain. It is almost like a true assistant to an engineer who is designing a product. So that's the differentiator, and the limitations we see with other customers is that they are not at that level of integration.
Steve, anything to add?
Yes, I mean, if you really think about other, PLM and QMS systems, these legacy systems were not built in a way that the data is unified. I mean, that was not, when these systems were built, that wasn't the thought, right? So having a unified data model like Propel it was basically made for AI, because you don't have to integrate and do so many, unifying of that data, massaging of the data. We already know that data model. We own the data model. We own the process. We know exactly how everything that goes from, the concept to marketing. We know that flow. So it's always much easier for us to ground the data with the correct data and extend it across, multiple layers with users and use cases. And that's what the advantage we have is we started with data. We started with a data model. We started with workflow versus, stitching things together based on legacy systems.
So great. So if I can play this back to you to make sure I've understood it, you've got a comprehensive and deep data model that just comes from our standard platform by nature of that's how we built it from the ground up. Instead of bringing in a third-party LLM that's bolted on, the LLM, the AI is integrated with the platform itself, which means that you can now extend it to that deep data structure. And that breadth and depth of data combined with the embedded AI is what really allows the AI to understand the context of what needs to be done and helps make it more precise with the execution of tasks and the analysis of data. Is that fair point?
Yes, you got it, Dario.
Okay. Or Chandra, were you about to say something?
I was going to say the same thing. You got it.
Okay.
I think the key thing is that the agentic solution can really reason like a true user of PLM system.
Okay. So that's a big one. You can begin to augment the reasoning capabilities of a human being. The human is still managing, the human is still in the loop, making sure that it is being executed correctly. But the AI is more than just a tool to do something faster. It can bring in some reasoning as well.
Exactly.
Okay. So, stepping back, so this is helpful, but if I'm a buyer, I'm sure it's still confusing, or how do you know, how do I know that, Propel isn't just saying this, everybody's going to talk about how their AI is great. What are the questions or things that a manufacturer can do to try to distinguish if a provider is just putting out, say, a nice slick marketing message on AI versus something that's going to be really productive? What are the steps they should take or the questions they should ask to really vet if the AI is going to do what they need it to do? I don't know who wants to take this one. Steve? Chandra, you look like you're ready to take it.
Go for it.
Steve, I'll keep it short. I know you got a lot of information to share here. I think the simplest test I would, if I were in their position, ask is, does this AI tool help our engineers and other users complete real work? Right? If the AI can only answer questions or do summarization, while it may look impressive, it really does not change productivity. So real manufacturing AI should help teams navigate this complex product data, analyze changes, perform impact analysis for the user, and find information that is typically in a lot of these documents, and tee up the information and insights and do some of these sort of the grunt work for the user and tee it up so that the user can come in and make the most important decisions. And that, I think, is what a prospect should be looking at: is does the AI tool do all of this? And when AI, in our case, is connected to the digital thread of product data, it really becomes a productivity tool booster for the engineering teams and other teams involved in product development.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to Chandra, I mean, AI means a lot. It means a lot of things, right? So when you look at what the offers or what the manufacturer is really offering you as far as AI is, there is three short, areas right now is predictive, and we talked about, predicting something to happen. It's not really taking an action, just predicting X, Y, and Z, and that's the percentage is going to happen. Then, we went, and that's been around for many years, right? Then in the last 2 years, we came up with a generative. And basically that's, whether it's generating a summary or generating an email, again, that wasn't really, it cuts down a little bit of time, but it's really not agentic yet. So you got predictive, generative, then agentic. And agentic is where Gartner predict in like 2028 that 15% of that workload is going to be automated. And it's to be able to detect something and keep human in the loop, of course, but to detect something and actually ask you, do you want to do something about it? It's simple analogy is between the difference between the two. Predictive will be something predict rain. Next one will be generating a summary of what's going to happen today as far as rain and make sure you get your umbrella. The last agentic is actually automatically knows it's gonna rain, automatically tell you, hey, I'm gonna cancel your irrigation today. It's automatically gonna say, I'm gonna reschedule some of your outdoor activities because I see there's gonna be rain today. That is where as an engineer, as a quality, that's the kind of AI you want, is how it's gonna automate or at least keep me in a loop to execute some of these tasks.
Okay, great. So I want to dig deeper in one area though. So the innovation is great, the predictability, like all of that is wonderful, but we work with a lot of companies that are in regulated industries. And as we all know, most of the regulators don't view compliance and innovation. It's a little bit of a give and take. Our companies, our customers, excuse me, want to push as much innovation as they can, but they need to remain in compliance with the different regulatory bodies that they're subject to. So AI feels like in a whole different layer here. How do you unleash the AI to do all of the things that you're saying it can do while still maintaining compliance in regulated industries?
Try to pass it to you since you, the security and you do all our SOC 2 and all that. So
Yeah, I think it's a good point, and I think in the back of most of our customers' mind is the governance and auditability and compliance, and they can't sacrifice control and traceability when adopting AI. Every engineering decision with respect to product lifecycle needs to be secure, traceable, and auditable. Propel One, because it's built and integrated within the Salesforce's enterprise platform, specifically Agentforce, governance and trust is built in. So every AI interaction is tied to the product data, that is the customers, the permission model, the security model, and audit history. And that ensures that the right actions are performed by the right people, and all of those actions are audited, and there is no data that is actually leaving their organization. So companies can innovate with AI, as for the reasons we mentioned earlier, while still maintaining compliance and regulatory confidence.
So, follow-up question to what you're just saying. Given how the security model works, does that mean that the permission set is going to be followed by the agent? In other words, if I'm a VP of engineering and I have access to all the designs, or if I'm a product manager who's only got access to my specific designs, if we're both using the same agent, it will be smart and know when to allow access to all of the different product designs and when I should only have access to the ones that I would normally have access to if I'm searching in the system. Is that how this works?
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It will inherit the permission model that is being configured for your organization. And like you said, a supplier, for instance, it can see certain things as is already defined, and the agent will inherit that. Steve, go
And
ahead.
just to add to the layer of Propel One, so if you just think of the life cycle of how a user put in a prompt and the data comes to the user first, once that prompt get its security start the minute the prompt is actually put into the system. At first, gonna see, are they trying to reverse engineer or trying to manipulate the system to ask that question? That's kind of the first, you know, things that we detect. Then it goes into permission sets, right? People, our customer even have permission set all the way to a field, not just a record. Like we take all the permissions that's already based on, you already massage and you already have in place. We take that permission sets. Then we send that data to just that only data. This could be different than somebody else to LLM. LLM digest it with our prompts and basically in Propel One and figure out how to answer that question. And the minute it figured it out, it's going back to the user. LLM have forgets about it, doesn't even use it for training or anything. And as that data comes back, our system look for toxicities detection. Does it have anything that's harmful or any language that's harmful? Then also we'll have an audit trail. What did the user prompt and what was the answer? We want to be able to, whenever we get audited, we want to be able to see the audit trail to what was sent for that user and what was their prompt. And then finally the user see that information. So we have this whole loop. It's all around security to make sure we are, not letting people see information that they're supposed to see and not letting public get information of that security of data.
Yeah,
And Dario, oftentimes we get asked whether their IP is secure, right? The customer's IP, because we are using LLMs as one of the underlying engines. And that's where I think Steve was pointing out is that the underlying trust model or that layer that we use from Salesforce as part of this overall solution is zero copy, which means that there is agreement with the LLM providers that their data is not going to be copied or used for training or any other purposes. So it's completely secure from that standpoint, and customers don't have to worry about it.
great. Yeah, and I agree. Data security is something near and dear to all of our customers' hearts. So thank you for pointing that one out. I do want to switch gears, though. I appreciate you guys giving us all of the deep technical background of how we make this possible. But let's talk about real world usage. Can one of you provide just an overview of some of the agents that we have live, how they're being used, and any type of customer results that we've seen in the field here?
Definitely. We curated our Propel One based on the user and based on based on our subject matter areas. So, for example, for engineers, we want to provide them quick view of summarization on their item and their revision, what's going on with their BOM, any change orders, any quality issues, so they don't have to jump and spend 30 minutes trying to get caught up to speed of what that where they are in the process. If there's a change order, we wanted to be able to tell the users who's need approvers, where is it stuck, why is it stuck, and if they have, a lot of customers might have their SOPs or they have, tasks that they want to do and validate before they actually move the change order and an ECO and an MCO. We want to make sure that we can give them a way that instead of them going manually thinking about what they need to check for, is to let the agent automatically detect and say, okay, this is, this is what's wrong. Maybe you have a simple example, a single source part or part that just based deep in your affected item that is not even, it's just single source. How would you detect that if you have so many layers? We want to be able to catch those errors beforehand and help the not just the engineer, anybody looking at trying to get up to speed to a change order an item. Also, a big task is for both engineer and QA and change analyst is all the documentation that's in the system We only ingest the documentation that's relevant to you at that point when you are looking at that record. And we are self-aware about all the documentations as well. So you can quickly ask a question about that document or get a summary or see what's going on. We get a lot of declarations sometimes that are sitting in the system that we quickly want to summarize or get, without reading 3 or 4 pages, just to get that piece and just put it inside of your record so you can save at least 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And also, the having documents all ingested will be helpful for field service who's working on an asset and that ties to a certain revision. Well, they want to know what part at that revision, and we provide that for them. But on top of it, what part for that revision and what documentation and what manual that's relevant to that is that particular asset, not some other revision that have another part that doesn't apply to that specific revision. A lot of the our quality where somebody need to create a quiz, for example, right? They want to be able to get up to speed on a manual, up to speed on a process. It could be take you hours and hours to create the quiz and multiple variation of that quiz. Could be, couple of hours, and now we can just do it in like 2, 3 minutes. You can create a quiz, choose your questions, attach it to a draft of an item. So they have to take that test before you even, be able to, sign off on it. So, I mean, we have, that's some of the use cases that we actually do inside of Propel One. Chandra, I'm not sure if I missed any top of your
Uh,
head.
no, I think you hit most of the use cases. I think if I can summarize it, because we're embedding AI directly in many of these workflows within product lifecycle management, the teams will see their workload and the time and the effort reduce from a matter of days to hours, and be able to move decisions forward faster.
Great. So big impact across teams. You talked a little bit about quality, engineering, field service. Again, coming back to that single product thread and the impact that you discussed, Chandra, like you're making impact across the entire company, not just one siloed team. So that's great to hear. But the question always comes down to it's great that there's a big impact, but how difficult is this? So let's talk just very briefly. Last question, implementation. What does it take to get Propel One launched and ramped and implemented?
So a lot of our actions and prompts are already packaged. We already have a package on the App Exchange for our PLM, and that basically the user, just install it, and we know that data model because we have figured out, some of the top use cases. So right off the bat, you can get started, but also the Agentforce in general, which Propel One is built on, is very configurable. So we want the user to be able to change the way they want the agent to interpret their data. So we give them what we call prompt templates, and they actually could edit it and configure it to their own needs. And it's already part of your system that you have flows and you have actions that all what you have to do is just point the AI to them and let them be part of your process. So the extendability is great. The implementation is no different than implementing the original PLM or a Salesforce. It's much it's takes that flow and actually less less work because you already have established that in your data already.
And there's no separate AI infrastructure that needs to be deployed.
Yeah.
So again, going back to it's integral to the platform, so you don't need to deploy anything separate.
Nope, it's just part of the platform.
Okay. All right, guys. So thanks again for the overview. Let's just wrap up just very briefly. Chandra, I'll go to you first here. If you're going to sum up Propel One to a manufacturer, whether they be on the engineering side or quality side, if they are considering a new system, if they're considering AI, how would you sum up Propel One?
I would say that the future of manufacturing isn't just digital; it's agentic. where intelligent systems working alongside their teams and engineers across the entire product lifecycle, delivering value.
All right. Steve, same question for you, and I'll let you wrap up here.
All right. So definitely whenever you think of AI, definitely think of your personas and your data and your infrastructure and extendability. And I feel Propel won't cover all of them. And the easy implementation and the security in place, get Propel One to be successful in any environment that you're currently in. And it's easier to deploy. It's easier for security and compliance, and it goes right on productivity quickly without having to do so much work up front to actually get AI implemented in your system.
All right. Well, I appreciate the summary, and thank you both for your time. Chandra, Steve, it's been very informative, and thank you for spending some time with us to explain Propel One. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you, Dario.